Okay, here's my story. This started back in September 2012. It was 7th grade for me that year, and it was a new school, and I felt like I was really going to like it there. Second period was math class, and I remember meeting my math teacher. One of the things I quickly learned about her is that she was a proud mother of one, and meeting her was really no different than meeting my other teachers, because all of them seemed really nice, and it wasn't until later that year that she really started to stand out from the rest. My 6th grade year was awful, because I went through a lot of bullying at my old school, and as far as friends went, I had absolutely nobody. So, being at a new school, it definitely felt like a fresh start. I was at my old school for 4 years, which was unexpected for me because before that, I had never been at one school for longer than 2 years. So when problems started happening in 7th grade, to the point where my first panic attack became the outcome, my mom started looking for a different school. I really didn't want to go to a different school, despite the problems. It was better than my old school. I liked my friends, I liked my teachers, and overall I was secretly hoping to not leave. So, going into a new school that year, and going into the new school year, and we're talking like 1 week in, and my mom really just wasn't having much luck. And then came one day, we were in the car with my aunt, and that's when my mom got a phone call, and it was my math teacher, probably wondering why I wasn't in school. My mom spoke to her, and my teacher set up a meeting, and basically shaped things up to be better that year. So I ended up going back to the same school, which, of course, I was happy about. Things actually were going better that year. I didn't have a favorite teacher, or so I didn't think. And it wasn't until one particular day I realized I did. I was in math class, and math was almost over, so my friend and I were getting ready to go to lunch. And when my teacher announced to us that she was having a sub the following day, and of course it was the same sub that she would frequently have. And I can't tell you how much of a shitty feeling it was when I would hear that, because the sub was nothing short of a mean old grouch, and I didn't like her. So I confronted my teacher about it. I think I asked her where she was going or something of that nature. And with a smile on my face, because, I didn't want to make it seem like I was complaining, I told her I didn't like her sub. She apologized for that, and I think she said that she had a meeting the next day, and she told me that she didn't have a choice. I knew it wasn't her fault, but with no further questions, I just gave her a hug. And just like that, I knew who my favorite was. It took me long enough to figure that out when it should have been obvious. I wouldn't have went back to that school if it weren't for her. And only then did I realize just how much I really liked her. And I made no secret of that. I practically hugged her on a regular basis. I poured my heart out to her with all of these compliments in front of other classmates, and even got social with her. Frustration was very frequent for her when my classmates would do something, would be doing anything but their math. She was in tears at one point. She yelled at us. There was another time where she walked out for a minute because she was so angry. Of course, not all of us were bad. I wasn't. My friend wasn't. At least not all the time. But after all that, I wanted to make her happy. She didn't deserve all the crap she got. So when it was just me and her, one-on-one, meaning she called me down to her room for testing, I managed to make her laugh. I told her that you do know that you're one of my favorite teachers, and she told me that I was one of her favorite students. I'm sure she figured out pretty quickly that I didn't like any of her subs, simply because I just didn't like it when she was gone. And this particular day was no exception, because one day, my friend upset me. He didn't mean to upset me, and I wasn't mad at him, but I was upset nonetheless. And having a sub that day wasn't helping. I wanted my math teacher, as I cried to my friend, saying, I wish our teacher was there. So I went to school the next morning, and I still wanted to see my teacher. But I had to wonder, was she there? Or was I going to be disappointed again? Well, I just couldn't stand it. I had to find out right away. I left my stuff on my desk and advisory, and I walked out. My math class was just a few doors down, so it wouldn't take long to get there. There was still time before the bell rang. I made my way to the door, and the door was opened, and I stood in the door, and I saw my math teacher writing on the board. Oh, miss, you're here today, I said, and I couldn't even hide the relief in my voice. She said hi to me, and of course I gave her a hug, and I told her about the other day, and I was just so happy to see her. In doing so, I realized that seeing her first thing in the morning was actually quite enjoyable, so I ended up doing that regularly. I remember that one day where in math class, my teacher gave us an assignment, and as usual, and unlike other times, this assignment was actually easy. I don't think it was supposed to be, but easy for me at least, and because of it I got it done quickly. And when I showed it to her, that was my first time seeing her that impressed. Like, she thought it was awesome. She was so proud that she was actually in tears. It was definitely a happy moment. But that soon came with worry because after that day, she came up to me as I was talking to my friend the next day, and she said to me, she called me by my last name, and she told me that I was going to rock it today. And I was kind of worried about that because what if I didn't? I mean, math wasn't always easy, and I didn't want to disappoint her. Luckily, I didn't. I don't think I did. My math teacher was affectionate. She called me sweets, and because I was so loyal to her, I was more willing to stand up for her than my friend. She was giving my friend lunch detention, and my friend just started talking back to her. At first I tried to reason with him, but upon realizing that was pretty much fruitless, and I ended up telling him it doesn't matter. You can't talk back to a teacher. My teacher heard me say that, and she thanked me for it. I remember a time where the moment she noticed my folder was destroyed because I stabbed it with my pencil multiple times, and when my teacher asked what happened to it, I didn't even get a chance to answer because she immediately guessed it. She asked if it was from me being mad, and at first I thought she was going to be mad, but she wasn't. She just told me that she would get me a new one as long as I promised not to do it again. And of course that was the case. Of course I didn't do it again. The only moments I didn't like was being separated from my friend that I had in middle school. I remember a time, and this was probably back in 7th grade, where she gave us new assigned seats, and I ended up having to sit next to a girl who I quickly realized was very rude, And it also didn't take long to know that I already had enough of her. So one day I came to class and I just sat next to my friend. And as I expected, because I knew she would, my teacher came up and asked me what I was doing there. And I told her that the girl wasn't very nice. And by that point, that girl definitely had some issues. I realized that because my teacher told her that she needed to be nice and that she's been told that before. But the other time was different. In my 8th grade year, I was assigned seated next to my friend again, and everything was fine until my teacher suddenly told me to temporarily move over to the next table for a day. I didn't understand why though. I didn't do anything, and needless to say, I wasn't happy about it. I wasn't mad at her, but I thought it was bullshit. So much so that I just sat there with my head down. I probably expected to be there for the remainder of class, but things took an unexpected turn. She actually came over to me and not only explained why she did that, but apologized. Most teachers, at least I would think, most teachers I had in the past, would probably have just ignored a situation like that, but she didn't. The name my teacher would call me was Sweets. I don't think anyone's ever called me that before. I mean, I've been called affectionate names before, but out of all the affectionate names I've been called with, I think she was the only one that ever called me that one. Overall, my 8th grade year was definitely a year to remember, but that did come with a downfall. The year was coming to an end, which I wasn't looking forward to, so my main focus was enjoying my friends and my teachers as much as I could. Especially on this particular day, because usually I didn't go to school on the last day, and I wasn't allowed to tell anybody, so I personally had my own last day, and my last day was Friday, which was the following day. So, while I was in math class that Thursday morning, my teacher dropped the bombshell. She was having a sub on Friday. I felt like crying in that moment. That mean old grouchy sub was not who I wanted to spend my last day with. I don't remember what I said to my teacher, but I don't think she was surprised about my reaction. She hugged me and told me everything was going to be okay, and said that she would see me later for testing. Not to mention she was planning on attending my high school meetings, so I did feel a little bit better after that. I loved my math teacher, and basically what ended up happening was I moved and we couldn't find a place in that district. So I ended up going to a different high school, and I never did see her again. And it sucked. It just sucked. Because when it comes to the 10th grade math teacher I would describe him as perverted, creepy. But going back in regards to my middle school math teacher, the last time I saw her was later that Thursday. She called me down to her room and tested to see how much I knew about counting money. And I didn't tell her how much I loved her, but I loved her. I loved her a lot. Even though she made me feel better about it, I thought I was gonna go on Friday, but I woke up the next morning feeling like crap. I just really didn't want to go if she wasn't gonna be there, but I didn't think I had a choice though. But when I told my mom about it, she actually asked me if I wanted to just call it done and just be done for the year. And I said yes. So I didn't go. I mean, let's face it. I mean, as much as I love my friends, the last day meant nothing if she wasn't gonna be there. I mean, it just didn't mean anything. So, I wasn't gonna go. I loved her, and I wasn't gonna go if she wasn't gonna be there. So, that was it. Well, rather than ending this off on a sad note, I guess I'll just say that it's interesting because I asked my friend if she thought that people who are perfect to you personally are rare. Because perfect as in loyal, trusting, caring, and basically everything. Basically everything my math teacher was. Do you think those kinds of people are rare? And she said yes. I found myself missing her, so I decided the way I would make myself feel better about it was to share the memories. So that's what brought me here today. This is a true story of me and someone that I loved. Good people like her only come around once in a lifetime, and I really am glad that happened. It's been 10 years since this point, since the last time that I saw her. And I remember at that time, when the end of the year was approaching, I wrote her a small letter. I wonder if she kept it. I told her I would miss her, and I did, and I always will.